Warriors, the Broken Code. Number 3, Veil of Shadows. Prologue. Shadowsight stretched himself out on a sun-warmed rock, enjoying the last rays as the sun above his head turned to scarlet. It was peaceful here, in the little clearing surrounded by bramble thickets. In fact, his whole existence had been peaceful since he had died. His last moons traveling with the Shadow Clan cats, his death saving one of their kits, seemed almost like a dream. Even though Tigerstar had given him a warrior name and begged StarClan to admit him to their hunting grounds, he had chosen to remain a ghost, free to wander between the lake and the city without any cat to challenge him. Shadowsight had only known a small number of Shadow Clan cats during his life, but since his death, he knew he had taken the opportunity to observe all the clans, to try to understand them. I have a pretty good idea of how they work now, he thought, and the more I learn, the more I think something is wrong. The shiver had passed through Shadowsight's pelt. It was not just because of the dying sun. His sense of unease deepened. It was more than just his fear that danger was lurking within the clans. Suddenly, he felt sure that a specific cat needed his help. But who? Since he died, Shadowsight had never felt such a strong sense of urgency. He jumped up and sped toward the lake, his ghostly paws skimming the surface of the ground. Something seemed to be tugging at him, opening up a path before him. Twilight gathered around Shadowsight as he ran. Clots of deeper darkness formed beneath the trees. Before he reached the lake, he spotted a brown tom striding purposefully through the forest, the white splotches on his pelt glimmering eerily in the dusk. Shadowsight took a sniff, but his instincts told him this was not the cat he was looking for. He ran on. Soon he heard a rustling in the bushes and paused, all his senses alert. Just ahead of him, he picked up the strong scent of crushed catmint. Taking a couple of cautious paces forward, Shadowsight poked his head around a clump of fern and blinked in surprise. Just off the path he had been following, a cat was rolling in a clump of catmint, working it thoroughly into his fur. By now it was too dark for Shadowsight to make out any details, though he could see that the cat was a muscular, powerful tom. Shadowsight's sense of danger sharpened. This is part of what has drawn me here, he realized. He doubted whether the other cat would be able to see him, but even so, he moved as stealthily as he could as he drew closer. He was still a couple of tail lengths away when the tom abruptly sat up, then settled into a hunter's crouch, peering into the undergrowth ahead of him. Almost immediately, he pounced, vanishing among the clustering ferns and bushes. A cry split the silence of the night. Shadowsight froze as he recognized the voice. That's Shadowsight! Shadowsight had only been a kit when Shadowsight died. In fact, it was his life that Shadowsight had saved in his last moments, even though Shadowsight could tell the kit was special, and now Shadowsight had grown into a gifted medicine cat. Shadowsight pushed his way through the bushes to see the powerful tom attacking Shadowsight, raking his claws across the young medicine cat's defenseless back. As Shadowsight watched in horror, he gripped Shadowsight by the scruff, gave him a vigorous shake, then slammed his body against a nearby tree trunk before letting him drop. Shadowsight fell limply to the ground. His paws twitched briefly, then grew still. Shadowsight let out a yell of shock and anger. He flung himself at the tom, clawing at his shoulder and throat, but his paws passed harmlessly through the tom's thick fur. Shadowsight flung back his head and let out a desperate attempt to summon other cats to help, but there was no response. I'm a ghost. I should have known no cat could hear me. The tom picked up Shadowsight's body and began dragging him deeper into the undergrowth. Shadowsight followed, his eyes wide with dismay. After a while, Shadowsight realized that the tom was heading toward a rocky area on the border between ThunderClan and SkyClan. When he reached it, He scrambled among the rocks, dragging the motionless body of the young medicine cat between his forepaws. Suddenly, Shadowsight realized what he intended to do. "No!" he snarled, leaping forward, but once again the Tom didn't even flinch. Shadowsight watched in horror as he swung Shadowsight by the scruff and tossed his body into a deep ravine. The limp gray form bounced off a jutting rock and landed beside the roots of a twisted thorn tree. The burly Tom gazed down at him for a moment, then whipped his head around in Shadowsight's direction, his eyes wide and watchful. For a moment, Shadowsight froze, almost certain that the cat had spotted him. But a heartbeat later, the large Tom turned and raced away, vanishing into the undergrowth. Shadowsight gazed down into the ravine, his fear turning to despair. By now, the darkness was so deep that he could hardly make out Shadowsight's body lying on the rocky ground. I refused Starkland so I could watch over my friends. Why was I forced to witness this? Letting out a wail of anguish, he crouched down at the very edge of the gully. Why did my instincts send me here? If I couldn't stop this, he asked himself in a storm of guilt and grief. My friend is dead, and there's nothing I can do. Chapter 1. Rupa shuffled his paws nervously, darting glances at the medicine cats around him. Just being at the moon pool spooked him. The spiral path stippled with the paw steps of cats so ancient that even their memory was lost. The continual gushing of the water that cascaded into the pool, the moon pool itself awash with reflected moonlight and starshine. We don't belong here, he thought, his gaze catching briefly on his father, Tree, who was sitting beside him. This place is only for medicine cats. He remembered the last time he had been allowed to visit the moon pool, when the medicine cats had tried to break the ice in hope of helping Starkland reach them. That didn't feel right either, and it didn't help us reconnect with Starkland. Even the medicine cats were looking anxious. Rupa realized the medicine cats from all the clans were here, except for Shadow Clan, while they waited for Puddleshine and Shadowsight to join them. The half-moon rose higher in the sky, and Rupa's pelt tingled with mounting tension. I just want to get on with it. He and Tree had traveled to the moon pool in the hope that they could make Bramblestar's wandering spirit appear to the medicine cats at their usual half-moon meeting. If they could, then every medicine cat would know that the cat inside Bramblestar was not the real leader of ThunderClan, and that would mean ThunderClan shouldn't follow his orders. But it's a big if, Rupa thought gloomily. He knew that some of the medicine cats weren't happy allowing Tree to approach so close to the moon pool. They couldn't accept the strange talents he had inherited from his kin and the sisters, or his disregard for the warrior code. But for once, Rupa was comforted by his father's presence. He hated to admit it, but the situation they were in now was bigger than the code. What's keeping the Shadow Clan cats? Kestrelflight muttered, rising to his paws and pacing from the water's edge to the bottom of the path and back again. We're wasting moonlight, he added with a glance at the sky. They'll be here in a minute, said Tree. We thought we heard a cat wailing in pain on the way here. Who was it? Tree shrugged. We never found any cats. We kept on looking for a while, but then Puddleshine figured that the injured cat must have been able to get back to the ThunderClan camp. Shadowsight had stayed behind to gather cobwebs, so Puddleshine went back for him while we came here. I hope they haven't run into trouble, Alderheart responded. We can't start without him. Jafer let out a snort, the tip of his tail twitching irritably to and fro. Before any other cat could speak, a rustling sound came from the bushes at the top of the hollow, and Puddleshine appeared, pushing his way through the thorny branches and running lightly down the spiral path to join his fellow medicine cats. Sorry I'm late, he panted. Where's Shadowsight? Rupa interrupted. He had felt relieved at the arrival of the Shadow Clan medicine cat, until he realized that Puddleshine was alone. Puddleshine gave him a blank look, then glanced around in confusion. Isn't he here? He asked. I thought he must have gotten ahead of me. He's not here, Mothwing meowed. Puddleshine hesitated. blinking worriedly. I looked for him, but when I couldn't find him, I thought he just decided to go on ahead. The fur on his neck and shoulders began to bristle. Where can he have gone? He asked. You must have missed each other, mothing me up briskly. We'll give him a little bit longer. The other medicine cats murmured agreement, settling down again beside the moon pool. Rootpaw could see their growing tension in their twitching whiskers and the impatient flicking of their tails. He felt even more strongly that he didn't belong here. As the moments dragged by, an aching hollow of anxiety opened up inside Rootpaw. Puddleshine, too, was still looking confused, as if he couldn't imagine what was keeping Shadowsight. Rootpaw's worry mounted until he couldn't bear it any longer. Shadowsight was the cat who had first spread the news that StarClan was angry with the Codebreakers. But he'd since changed his mind and began doubting his own vision. He has enemies now throughout the clans. Something bad must have happened, he burst out. We should go and look for Shadowsight. All the medicine cats turned to look at him with identical blank expressions on their faces. He was afraid that none of them would listen to an ordinary apprentice, but Frecklewish rose to her paws at once. Rootpaw is right, she meowed. Shadowsight wouldn't keep us waiting like this if he had any choice. He better not, Jayfeather responded, a sarcastic edge to his voice. If I find he's run off to chase moths, I'll claw his ears off. Puddleshine gave the blind cat a hard glare. If Shadowsight has deliberately wasted our time, I'll be the one to deal with him, he snapped. But Rootpaw could see from Puddleshine's hunched shoulders and the droop of his tail that he was generally worried. He was the first cat to bound up the path and thrust his way through the bushes, while the rest of the medicine cats streamed after him. Rootpaw and Tree brought up the rear. So much for calling up Ramblestar's spirit, Tree murmured with an anxious twitch of his ears. This is more important, Rootpaw insisted. He felt cold to the tip of his claws. Could an animal have attacked Shadowsight? Or worse, could another cat have attacked him? He shivered at the thought of a clan cat attacking ShadowClan's medicine cat. Would any cat really do that? It's against the warrior code. I'm sure something really bad has happened to Shadowsight. We have to find him. The group of cats climbed down the rocky slope and hurried across the moor, following the Wing Clan border stream, until they reached ThunderClan territory. Maybe we'll meet him on his way to the moon pool, Rootpaw thought hopefully. But there was no sign of Shadowsight by the time Puddleshine led them to the place where he had left the lakeshore, and headed into the forest in search for the injured cat. This shouldn't be difficult, Mothing mewed to Puddleshine. Your scent is quite strong still, and so is Shadowsight's. We only have to follow it. But not many fox lengths into the forest, the scent trail led into a patch that smelled so strongly of catmint that the cat's scent was swamped by it. Weird, Puddleshine shook his head in bewilderment. This is where we heard the cat yowling, I remember, because I thought mint didn't grow on this part of the forest. That's because it doesn't. This isn't a catmint patch. Someone brought catmint plants here, Alderheart pointed out, giving them a good sniff, and the stems of the grass below are crushed. Rootpaw frowned, trying to work it out. Maybe some cat or even a fox took prey here.